When Digital Extremes rolled out the Vallis Undermind update, one of the most talked about changes was the rework to damage attenuation. If you've been playing Warframe for a while, you probably already know what damage attenuation is. It's that system that soft caps how much damage enemies can take, especially boss tier ones. The idea behind this was to prevent high damage builds from instantly deleting priority targets and skipping fight mechanics. In theory, it makes sense, but the way it was implemented in this update hit players harder than expected. What started out as an effort to normalize difficulty across different squad strengths ended up impacting way more enemies than just the bosses. Suddenly, even regular objective enemies like Demolishers and Necromechs had damage caps slapped on them, and it made them feel like damage sponges. One of the biggest changes was that the attenuation values were scaled based on the enemy's max health, meaning the tankier the enemy, the harder your damage was going to be capped. They also made it so the damage cap applied per player instead of squad-wide. On paper, this was meant to make solo play and high damage builds feel more impactful, but in practice, it didn't land that way. Players quickly noticed that enemies they used to one-shot now took forever to kill. Imagine going into a disruption mission and watching your demolished target just sit there tanking your shots like a mini-boss, even though it wasn't supposed to be that way. It slowed down gameplay and made powerful builds feel neutered. The community backlash was instant. Reddit, forums, and Discord were flooded with complaints. Players were posting clips showing how their usual weapons were suddenly ineffective. Some even joked that they felt like they were playing a different game altogether. It wasn't just the min-maxers or speedrunners who were upset. Casual players, too, noticed that missions were taking longer and felt clunkier. There were threads titled, "Damage Attenuation is so bad," and others pointing out how specific mission types like Disruption and Void Cascade became nearly unplayable if you weren't using meta weapons. The frustration was loud enough that Digital Extremes responded fast. Just a day or so after the update went live, they dropped hotfix 40.0.2, which was basically a direct response to all the criticism. They rolled back the changes on a ton of enemies. Objective-style targets like Demolishers, Necromechs, Saxums, and more were removed from the attenuation pool. In other words, if you could one-shot them before, you could do it again. DE also clarified that only true bosses, those with big, obvious HUD health bars, would retain damage attenuation going forward. Even then, they tweaked the system so that well-built setups could still burst them down efficiently if played right. It was a fast and targeted fix that actually showed DE was listening. Still, not everyone was satisfied. Even with the rollback, some players felt the entire idea of tweaking attenuation just to normalize boss difficulty wasn't needed in the first place. A lot of the anger stemmed from the fact that builds which had taken weeks or months to perfect suddenly felt underwhelming. When your weapon stops doing the thing it was designed to do, deleting enemies fast, it doesn't matter if the change makes sense on paper. It just doesn't feel good. And while the fix brought back some normalcy, there are still concerns that attenuation makes slower, heavy-hitting weapons feel worse than faster, sustained DPS ones. That's a shift in playstyle that not everyone is happy about. At the end of the day, it's clear that DE had good intentions, but the way it was initially rolled out needed more fine-tuning. The quick hotfix helped ease tensions, but the topic of damage attenuation is still a bit of a sore spot in the community. Some players are calling for the system to be removed entirely, while others just want more transparency and consistency in how it's applied. The good news is that DE has shown they're willing to react quickly and adjust things when feedback comes in hot. But the damage, at least in terms of player trust, might take a bit longer to undo. What's funny about all the backlash from the Vallis Undermind update is that Digital Extremes actually did give us a heads up. If you watched the dev stream before the update dropped, Pablo specifically mentioned that they were planning to make changes to how damage attenuation works. He didn't go into every gritty detail at the time, but he was pretty open about the fact that the system needed reworking, and that a lot of it was going to be shaped by player feedback. He basically said, "Hey, we know this thing is janky, and we want to make it feel better. So the surprise wasn't that they were changing attenuation. It was more about how those changes landed on day one. During that dev stream, Pablo outlined that the current attenuation system had flaws. He talked about how some enemies could be trivialized by extremely powerful builds, while others felt wildly inconsistent in how they soaked up damage. His plan was to create a more consistent baseline so that boss-type enemies could still feel like actual fights instead of being nuked instantly by someone's favorite Incarna. But he also emphasized that this wasn't a final solution. They were going to try a new approach and adjust it as feedback came in. So even before the backlash, DE was already planning for a round of fine-tuning. In a way, they expected things to go a little rough at first. The problem is, most players either didn't catch that part of the dev stream or didn't realize just how wide the changes would apply. So, when regular mission enemies started behaving like raid bosses, people were blindsided. But to be fair to DE, they never said the update would be perfect out the gate. Pablo literally said they were starting with this and would iterate based on live feedback. And they did. The hotfix dropped almost immediately once they saw how bad the reaction was, which actually lines up with what they said beforehand. So, while the launch was bumpy, you can't really say they didn't warn us. However, there's just people who are nasty, and Pablo is getting all the hate right now on his Twitter page. I initially saw this in Reddit, and I was really shocked when I saw the comments. They are not funny at all, and you can call me Mr. Sentimental, but the way these bunch of treat Pablo like he owns them is really despicable. The Warframe community is known to be chill and friendly, but this right here is utter garbage. It's okay to have criticism, and I don't know what part these people don't understand when Digital Extremes said that they'll be making changes on the fly based on player feedback. Well, I guess they haven't read any patch notes or watch any dev stream from Digital Extremes. But this doesn't exempt them at all for saying such words to Pablo. I get that it's frustrating to see bullet sponges in the game, but these comments aren't feedbacking and total trash. But this isn't the only issue. Another unexpected frustrations that came with the Vallis Undermind update was the quiet gutting of Aya farming. Digital Extremes didn't exactly spotlight it, but tucked inside the patch notes was a line that changed everything. Open world bounties will now rotate new objectives after each stage. If you've ever farmed Aya efficiently, especially during Prime Resurgence events, you know how crucial it is to have short, repeatable bounty loops that you can burn through quickly. That change meant you could no longer repeat the same fast stage over and over for maximum efficiency. Your next stage would now be different every time, breaking up the optimized rhythm that most veteran players relied on. The community didn't take this lightly. Almost immediately, threads started popping up on Reddit and the Warframe forums, with players venting their frustration. Some even said they invested dozens of forma into specific builds, purely to squeeze more value out of their Aya runs. Now, with the rotation system, those builds feel wasted. The routes they used, the fast bounties they perfected, it's all been disrupted. A lot of players see this not just as a nerf to Aya farming, but as a slap in the face to the time they spent planning out those runs. And unlike other changes that come with balance or new mechanics, this one didn't offer anything in return. It just made the process slower. To be fair, Digital Extremes likely had good intentions here. From their perspective, endlessly repeating the same bounty stage isn't the most engaging way to play. They probably wanted to add more variety and prevent burnout by mixing things up. But from the player's perspective, especially those grinding Aya to get vaulted primes or trading for plat, it just made everything less efficient. And since Aya is tied to seasonal or limited time content, efficiency really matters. For now, the fastest Aya routes are gone or much slower, and players are left hoping DE reconsiders or provides new alternatives. Until then, what used to be a smooth, satisfying loop is now a messier grind. This change to Aya farming might seem small on the surface, but it's going to have a ripple effect on the Warframe market, especially when it comes to vaulted Prime gear. Aya is the main currency used for trading in Prime Resurgence, and anything that slows down its acquisition directly affects how quickly players can access or flip vaulted items. With the old bounty loops, players could reliably farm Aya in bulk and either trade it for Regal Aya, flip prime parts for platinum, or even stack up stock to wait for market demand spikes. Now that the speed of farming has been reduced, the supply chain slows down, and that always leads to price fluctuations. What this means is that we'll probably start seeing some prime sets, especially the rarer vaulted ones, go up in value. If fewer players are farming Aya at the same pace, that creates scarcity. And let's be real, scarcity in any market leads to either inflated prices or less trading activity. This could be good news for some veteran traders who hoarded stock before the patch, but it's going to be frustrating for casual players who just want to pick up a prime frame without spending 200 plat. Players already noticed this before during previous prime resurgence events. When Aya was easy to get, the market stabilized. Now, it's about to get a lot shakier. There's also the real money trading angle to consider. People who abuse the market to flip plat for actual cash rely heavily on speed farming methods. They use optimized builds, repeatable bounty loops, and often multiple accounts to farm Aya fast and sell prime parts for plat. If DE just slowed that down significantly, it cuts into their margins. And that's probably why some of the most vocal complaints online aren't just about the gameplay loop being less fun. It's that their whole farming operation just got nerfed. These folks aren't just annoyed, they're mad because their side hustle is being disrupted. But for the average player, the core frustration isn't about money, it's about freedom. Aya farming was one of the few things you could reliably do at your own pace. Want to grind fast? You could. Want to chill with a few loops per night? That worked too. Now the loop is broken. Whether it was for market control, RMT, or just stocking your inventory with primed items, this new system forces everyone to slow down. And sure, variety in bounties might be a good thing in the long run, but right now, it feels like something valuable was taken away. Not just efficiency, but the feeling of being in control of your own grind. Honestly, this update is really wild. I'm enjoying the update because Nako is really fun, but there's more to it, and it's not just chaotic because of the new Mushroom Warframe, but the update itself is chaos. It got a mix of good and bad, and a lot of drama. Now, I would also like to know your opinion about this. Let me know your thoughts in the comment below. Let's discuss it, and thanks for watching, by the way. I truly appreciate you for being here, and I hope to see you in the next one.